So there's a funny side effect of talking about this subject in particular, and that is that the words I use to convey it will be received by the mind, by the thought process, and it will subsequently be turned into something it's not. Now, this is just a side effect of the way we communicate. It's not a judgment on anyone who's listening. It's simply an observation of the way the mind functions. So the fact that the mind gets a hold of, or the thought process, or the conceptualizing mind, the dividing mind, gets a hold of information and turns it into something it's not, doesn't mean that the communication or the transmission is not valuable. Because essentially something's being communicated on a different channel. Or another way of saying it is that I'm sort of purposely misusing language. Language, in one sense, is used to apparently divide reality. To say me and you, this and that, before and after. And there's practical implications for that kind of communication, of course. So when we're talking about this subject that I'm talking about now, that I always talk about in these videos, I'm sort of using language in a way that it's not designed to be used. That's why often I get comments saying, what you're saying doesn't make sense, or it just sounds like gobbledygook or word salad, or it just makes no sense whatsoever. And that's actually a good thing. It means that the thought process, at least to some extent, has been put on tilt. Regardless of whether you feel like you've understood or received the communication, or whether you feel like you haven't, either of those conditions doesn't necessarily preclude or confirm that the deeper communication has occurred. So generally speaking, I'm always communicating something that goes beyond the thought process, beyond the dividing mind, because what's being communicated is something that's undivided, indivisible, actually. And that something is in your experience always. And it's so close that it's not actually an experience. It's so simple that we can't say a single thing about it without making it more complex than it actually is, which means we've made it into a thought. So with all this said, when listening to these types of videos or these types of transmissions, it's very valuable to always have a little bit of your attention in a deeper place, an instinctual place. If that's not immediately obvious what that means, then just look for the sensations in your body, the sensations in your chest, your gut, your neck, your head, hands, feet. Even if you feel that sensation field a bit outside the body or in the entire environment. Now, when we attune to that sensation field, you might notice that there's a almost subtle body, subtle aspect that is underlying the actual sensation itself. Again, this is a subtle thing I'm talking about, so if it's not obvious or if the mind gets up in arms about this because you can't find it, then it's okay, just attune to the sensations. But once you kind of sense what I mean by instinct, by raw instinct that has nothing to do specifically with any thought, any concept, any particular sensation, any particular sound, something that's so alive that it can't be defined by any picture your mind can take of this moment. If you can listen from there to some degree, then that's really the best you can do. You don't need to analyze, take notes, remember. Just touch in deep. When it comes to information, when it comes to data, we tend to value breadth, a breadth of data, a lot of information. When it comes to realization, when it comes to these sorts of communications and transmissions, it's really about depth. It's not about time. It's about how deep can we go right now? How deep can you go right now? How much can you let go right now? That's what this is about. Doesn't matter if you hear words or don't hear words. The depth is there. You can proceed into those depths, even letting go of the grasping or the monitoring of how deep things are going. You don't have to monitor or manage what's being heard, seen, felt, what the thoughts are saying or not saying. We all have the ability to just go deep into this instinct, beyond anything you know, in the usual way of knowing, beyond anything you've learned or gathered, beyond any grasping, beyond any pushing or pulling, into these depths. That's what this is about. It's what it's always about. All the answers, all the stages of realization, all the insights happen in depth, not in breadth, not in gathering experiences or information, but touching in deep now. If you have a story about how long you've been at this, all the twists and turns of your spiritual journey, that's fine. Can you let go of that right now? Completely. Can you see what is so deep, so profound, that that story has nothing to do with it? Doesn't matter if you've been alive 1 minute, 1 year, 10 years, or 100 years. This depth, this that we're talking about, is unconcerned. It's not worried about what your story is, if you've struggled or not struggled, how long the road has been. That's the beauty of it. The release is immediate, and it's now, and it's in depth. Depth that is unfathomable, unending. Release, 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 release. Just let go. That's how awakening happens. That's how letting go of various aspects of identity happens. You can't do the letting go, but you can plummet into the depths and see what happens. There's something here that's so powerful. It's beyond anything you can imagine, think about. It's beyond any physical experience you've ever had. It's beyond everything you're sensing or taking in right now. And you have direct access to it. Just go into those depths. Past all of the fear barriers, all of the what ifs, or I don't know wheres. Just keep going. That's how this works.